Hey, so the purpose of this video is to give you some background information on the topic of ecology, and this background information will help you prepare for the labs that you have to do with this unit. And you're going to be taking some notes as you go, and I will kind of talk you through the slides and explain some of the key concepts that you need to learn in order to be able to perform these labs. So just a background information quick on what ecology is. Ecology is really looking at interactions among organisms and between organisms and their environment, and this can be living and non-living aspects of the environment. And ecologists are the scientists who study the flow of energy through communities to discover their nutritional relationships. So you'll be learning a lot about predator-prey relationships, autotrophs, heterotrophs. How do all those pieces fit together to make an environment successful? And a very important factor to know that you'll get more familiar with as you do some of the labs is that sunlight is the main energy source for all life on Earth. We need that sun. And the reason why we need that sun is to provide energy to organisms that produce their own food using the energy from that sun. And those organisms are called autotrophs, and you'll also hear them called producers. And they produce this energy, their energy from the sunlight through a process called photosynthesis, which we're just going to touch on now and introduce you to, but we'll be studying further as we go in further through these units. But basically photosynthesis is a process used by autotrophs to make food energy from the sun. And some examples of autotrophs would be your plants, algae, and cyanobacteria. In contrast to autotrophs, which are the organisms which make their own food, we have heterotrophs. And heterotrophs are organisms that rely on other organisms for their energy and food supply. And we also call heterotrophs consumers. They need to consume their food. They can't just go out hang out in the sunlight and produce their own food. There are 4 types of heterotrophs. We have herbivores, which are organisms that eat only plants. There are carnivores, which are organisms that eat only animals. There are omnivores, which are the organisms that eat both plants and animals, and then there are detritivores, which eat plant and animal remains. There's also a category of heterotrophs called decomposers, and those are like your bacteria and fungi that help break down organic matter. The flow of energy in an ecosystem is one directional. It's going to come from the sun to the autotrophs and then to the heterotrophs. And you'll see this represented in food chains. More accurately, we'll see them in food webs because it's really not always that linear. There's multiple factors that play into how the energy flows. But food chains, food webs are going to show how matter and energy move through an ecosystem in a series of steps showing which organisms transfer energy by eating and which ones transfer by being eaten. And this next little slide here will show you an example of what a food chain might look like. And again, you're going to do some work with this in the labs that you have coming up in this unit. So energy flow is something that ecologists study in order to look at how energy moves through an ecosystem, but there's other factors that ecologists look at, like the environments that organisms are living in. And there's multiple factors that can influence an environment. They're called biotic and abiotic factors. And biotic factors are all the living organisms in a specific ecosystem, while abiotic factors are all the non-living parts of that environment and ecosystem. So examples of some non-living factors, abiotic factors would be climate, what's the wind like there, what nutrients are available, what type of soil does it have, how much sunlight does an area get. These biotic and abiotic factors help define the habitat of where an organism lives. And then ecologists also look at not just the habitat and the biotic and abiotic factors, but how does that organism or species, what type of strategies and adaptations do they have to survive in their environment? So what is their niche? And these could be what type of food does the organism eat, how does the organism attain its shelter, and how does it obtain its food, and how does the species reproduce, how does it survive? And one last thing to introduce you to when we're talking about organisms and their environments is the idea of symbiosis. And symbiosis is any relationship in which two different species can live together closely. There's three types of symbiosis. There's mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Mutualism, both species will benefit from the relationship. Commensalism, one species benefits, the other one's not really harmed or hurt. And then parasitism would be where one organism benefits from it, but the other organism is harmed. Thanks so much for watching this video. I know it was a lot of concepts to throw at you, but you're going to be able to dive into them all a little bit deeper through the labs that we're going to do. You're going to design an ecosystem. You're going to look at how energy does flow through an ecosystem. You're going to be looking at limiting factors for a species. So at what point is the population too high versus the resources where the organism lives? And then we're going to look at invasive species, because that's a really important topic to talk about. It's looking at how when a species gets introduced into an ecosystem, how does it threaten the natural ecosystem? So have fun with the labs, and I hope that they help really solidify all these concepts for you.